For years they told us it was all a conspiracy theory, a wild fantasy with no basis in reality. US-funded biolabs in Ukraine? Nonsense, they said. Adrenochrome? Doesn't exist, they said. But now, the truth is clawing its way to the surface. Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard, alongside Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr., has just blown the lid off one of the most chilling cover-ups of our time. The US-funded biolabs in Ukraine weren't just real, they were key players in a covert global operation that played a role in unleashing the COVID pandemic. But it doesn't stop there. Under the leadership of a former NIH director Anthony Fauci, these facilities were trafficking something far darker. High-grade medical adrenochrome, obtained via experimentation and torture on young children, and distributing it through a network that reaches into the highest echelons of power. This isn't just about secret labs or viral leaks anymore. This is about the machinery of global control, and the names involved in the operation will shock you to the core. Before we dive in, join the TPV free speech community over on Soju. Soju is a digital space where ideas and information can take place without any annoying algorithms or restrictive rules getting in the way of free expression. DNI Director Tulsi Gabbard has never been afraid to speak truth to power. Back when she was a Democratic Congresswoman, she did the unthinkable. She went to Syria on her own, defying party leadership, and came back with a bombshell that shook the liberal establishment to its core. The Obama administration was funding ISIS and Al-Qaeda.
But they expressed a question. They said, why is it that the United States, its allies and other countries are providing support, are providing arms to terrorist groups like al-Nusra, Al-Qaeda, Arar al-Sham, ISIS, who are on the ground there raping, kidnapping, torturing, and killing the Syrian people, children, men, women, people of all ages.
This wasn't a gaffe. It was a glimpse into the deep connection between Democrat foreign policy and the globalist agenda. And Gabbard was one of the first insiders willing to call it what it was. Now, Gabbard has set her sights on slaying another Democrat icon, Dr. Anthony Fauci, granted godlike powers of creation and destruction by the liberal elite over the course of an inglorious decades-long career that's involved the deaths of millions. Fauci was also responsible for the deaths of tens of thousands of animals, tortured senselessly, and most shockingly, children, buried in mass graves in New York, all of whom were tortured without mercy. According to Gabbard, these known crimes are the tip of the iceberg when it comes to the crimes of the man who begged outgoing President Biden for a preemptive pardon, covering the very specific period of time.
But the thing that we are working with Jay Bhattacharya, the new NIH director, on with, as well as Secretary Kennedy, is looking at the gain-of-function research that, in the case of the Wuhan lab, as well as many of these other biolabs around the world, was actually U.S. funded and leads to this dangerous kind of research that, in many examples, has resulted in either a pandemic or some other major health crisis.
Well, let me ask you specifically, because we already know that EcoHealth Alliance was partnering with this Wuhan lab to do gain-of-function research.
That's right.
We just have never been able to have somebody say, it was that exact experiment that led to this COVID bug. But have we gotten there? What's the new thing that you're digging in on?
We are working on that with Jay Bhattacharya and look forward to being able to share that, hopefully very soon.
Okay.
That specific
link.
Correct, between the gain-of-function research and what we saw with COVID-19.
I mean, that would be extraordinary because, just so the audience knows, if that's true, if it was Peter Daszak's research with the Wuhan so-called bat lady that caused this pandemic, then we did fund it. Then Anthony Fauci helped fund the pandemic.
The thing that he denied over and over and over to Senator Rand Paul's questioning.
That's right, under oath.
Under oath, exactly. So is it any wonder that he sought a preemptive pardon for anything during a certain period of time by President Biden before he left office?
Things are going from bad to worse for Anthony Fauci, a man many people are now calling the modern-day Joseph Mengele. As Gabbard explains, unleashing pandemics on the world and mandating a destructive vaccine on millions may just be the tip of the iceberg. Why did Russia invade Ukraine? Gabbard offers a chilling theory. It wasn't just about NATO or geopolitics, it was about Fauci. US-funded biolabs under Fauci's influence were operating dangerously close to Russia's borders. And for Putin, that was a red line. If what Gabbard says about what was happening in those labs even scratches the surface of the truth, then Fauci's legacy is even darker than anybody imagined.
And the reason why this is so important is not just what happened in the past, it's because this gain-of-function research is happening in biolabs around the world. I got attacked, and I think you saw this, we've probably talked about it on your show before, when I warned against US-funded biolabs in Ukraine when the Russia-Ukraine war kicked off for this very reason. Who knows what kinds of pathogens are in these labs, and if released, could create another COVID-like pandemic. And for that, I was called a Russian asset. You're, trumpeting Putin's talking points, all of this nonsense, simply for speaking the truth and stating facts that, by the way, are still on U.S. Embassy Ukraine's website today about how the U.S. has funded these biolabs in Ukraine. But my point is, in order to prevent another COVID-like pandemic or another major health incident that could affect us in the world, we have to end this gain-of-function research and provide the evidence that shows exactly why and how it's in our best interest, the American people's best interest, to bring about an end to it.
Want to know why the intelligence community was so desperate to cover up the truth about the origins of the pandemic? The truth is, adrenochrome was being produced at Fauci's Wuhan lab before the pandemic hit. Yes, the elite's drug of choice, sourced from the tortured and adrenalized blood of the young. And we have got the receipts. Fauci and his NIH allies were masters of secrecy, erasing digital trails, scrubbing the crime scene, and counting on the public to forget. But they underestimated us. Thanks to the Wayback Machine, the internet never forgets. And now, we can see exactly what was happening inside Fauci's biolabs back in 2017. Adrenochrome, the drug Putin calls the devil's narcotic, was deposited in Fauci's lab on the 17th of July 2018 and available on the same date. As Gabbard says, questions must be asked. Deposited by whom? And available to whom? Ukraine is the global capital of the child sex trade, and investigators warn it's home to a network of adrenochrome factories. This is why the streets of towns and cities across Ukraine are lined with missing children posters. How many of these children were trafficked through Fauci's biolab network? Did you know that adrenochrome is still available for purchase from over 119 global suppliers, including the Wuhan lab funded by Fauci's EcoHealth Alliance? These suppliers claim they were involved with adrenochrome for scientific research purposes, which is a convenient excuse also used by Fauci when asked about the mass graves of orphans and tortured dogs. The deeper you dig, the darker it gets. How did Fauci stay untouchable for so long? Simple. He was never acting alone. He was just one cog in a vast corrupted machine that stretches through the highest levels of government, big pharma, and beyond. But now, the pieces are coming together, and we're about to drive the final nail in their coffin. Right after this important message.